Hi, Nikki. It is great to see you again. I'm very, very glad to have you back. Everyone, this is Nikki Jackson. If you haven't seen the first interview with her, it is available through You Talk It, We Live It. I am River Scholl, and today we are going to discuss both COVID-19 and the Black Lives Matter movement. Nikki has a very interesting story to share about the protests here in Portland. So, Nikki, if you wouldn't mind just breaking down, what happened this week with you and the Black Lives Matter movement.
Absolutely. First of all, I apologize. I am driving. If you didn't watch the first interview, quick synopsis on me. I am a CNA hospice aide, and one of our aides had a family emergency, so I'm covering a trip for her. So instead of being in the comfort of my own home doing this interview, I'm commuting. But I am hands-free, everyone. So I apologize for maybe not looking at the camera, but I am here and mentally present for you and for everyone watching. So with that being said, it was actually on one of my commutes to a patient, because we always go to where the patients are, that this happened. It was Monday? Yes, Monday. It was Monday evening around 7 o'clock. I was coming from a Beaverton location out to Troutdale. So, of course, taking Highway 84, 26, 84, and on out. And there's 3 lanes of traffic, and there's 3 or 4 cars that kept kind of like changing lanes and basically created a rolling roadblock. And I thought maybe one car was having trouble. Their flashers were on. They were going about 15 miles an hour. And then all of a sudden, all the cars just, the front line, the rolling roadblock just stopped in the middle of the highway, completely blocking traffic. Now, my first thought is something's going on. Is someone having a heart attack? Like if there's a car doing 20 with its flashers on next to me, I'm going to look and see like what's going on. And if someone's, like grabbing at their chest, I'm going to slow down, match their speed, be like, hey, pull over, let me help. So I thought it was something like that. So I'm 3 cars back. So there's a rolling roadblock, 2 cars, and then me. So after a couple of minutes of seeing that they're not moving, something is definitely happening. I had no clue what. I opened my door, I go out, and I said, hey, I'm medical personnel. Is everyone okay? Is there anything I can help with? What's going on? Fully expecting to like start CPR or call 911. And then I see that all the cars have BLM and red or orange crosses on them, indicating like medical or organizer or some leadership position. And one of the guys, he goes, no, we have protesters. And I was like, on the highway? And he goes, yeah, they're coming on the on-ramp and then going up to 33rd. So I'm on my way to a patient. This patient is, it's hospice, so getting better is not the goal. The goal is pain and stress-free in their last 6 months of life. So this patient is getting closer to transitioning and really does need the services I provide. So I'm already running late. That's a whole other story. Patients just take up extra time sometimes. So I'm running late. We get stopped. Now I've been waiting in the car for like 6, 7, 8 minutes before I get out. And now I've learned that protesters are just now getting on the highway. So I, in all my professionalism, kind of drop an F-bomb. Crap! Oh my God, I'm sorry. I shouldn't say that. I'm not being professional. I fully support the movement, but I'm trying to get to a patient who needs my services. I'm a medical worker. And he was like, oh shit, okay, hold on a second. And then talked to some other coordinators and said, okay, we're going to escort you through. if you can get up here past the two cars in front of you, we're going to escort you through the protesters and get you on your way. Now, that was pretty big because 24 hours earlier, somebody in Seattle, I believe it was, please correct me if I'm wrong, River, drove into a group of protesters and shot somebody. So 24 hours earlier, protesters are being run over. And here I am asking not really asking, but here I am, proposing I drive my car through the protesters. But they said yes.
For your patient.
Right. I mean, I have my badge. I have a letter saying I'm an essential worker. I'm in scrubs. You can see masks galore all over my car. I mean, I'm obviously medical, but they don't know me from Adam, So they said, just hang on a second. We're going to coordinate this to get you through to protect you and our protesters. They wanted to make sure everything was safe and done correctly. So there were guys, men and women, I shouldn't just say guys, but there were protesters with walkie-talkies, and some of them were on bicycles, so they could go up to the front and back and move around quickly. And they said, we're going to have a few bikes escort you through, put your hazards on, just drive real slow. We'll get you through the sea of people. And then they asked if they could send one of their guys up to the front with me. So I said, yeah, unlock the doors, come in, anything I can do to help. They're willing to help me. It's the least I could do. So I had one of the coordinators in my car, 2 or 3 people on bikes in front of me, ringing their bells, getting people's attention, saying, hey, we've got a medic coming through, which I don't know if medic is legally the right term for me, but in the moment I wasn't going to be like, well, actually, it's just whatever, it's whatever terminology they wanted to use is totally fine. So I get to the herd of people, and I guess the people on the bicycles were saying, like, medical emergency, we got to get this person through. And it was really cool because all the protesters were like, oh, yeah, no, let me get out of the way. They acquiesced it immediately. There was no pushback at all. And it was just really cool to see the BLM movement support the healthcare workers, because healthcare is a part of the BLM movement. The COVID crisis has disproportionately affected Black and Latino and all Native American, all people of color, really harshly. And it's not because they're more susceptible to the disease, but because they lack the health care that white suburbia might have. I personally have like three health clinics I could walk to from my house, versus downtown Portland, in a more urban setting, it might be 3 buses away. Now you got to get on a bus while you're feeling sick and can hardly walk across the living room just to get to the doctor. So it's harder, So they supported me in my healthcare-ness. I guess I don't know what else to call it, my healthcare-ness. And while I was in there, I wanted to make sure they knew I wasn't trying to be like, well, you're inconveniencing me and I don't have time for this. I wanted to make sure everyone knew that I supported their movement as well. I'm with you, even if I can't be with you. So I rolled down my window. I had my arm out. They were chanting, whose streets are streets? Whose streets are streets? So I'm honking instead of screaming, because I didn't want to scream in the guy next to me's ear. So whose streets? Meet, meet. Whose streets? Meet, meet. In my little car. And then I just be like, me, and everyone's like, yeah. And it was just really powerful that there was so much love and support from both sides, even though me getting through defeats the purpose of them going on the highway. It was still, it was a union of love and a coalition of causes, and it was beautiful.
It sounds like it. And to clarify, how do you personally identify?
I identify as a straight, white, cis female.
Okay.
I'm pretty cookie cutter, you know. I'm Russian, German, and Norwegian. Like I said, I'm straight, I'm married, I have one kid, I live in a house, we have land and horses, and I'm not exciting in my identification at all. I'm pretty much, but then that raises the question, because see here, I almost said I'm pretty much the default. Why am I the default? That is an unconscious bias that I'm trying to be more aware of. And I was like, nah, I'm pretty much just tick the first box in all the questions. I'm just the default. That's not right. So even just now, I'm trying to catch myself from my unconscious bias.
And that brings me to a question on that. So I know for myself, there are definitely experiences that I have had where even just right after or sometimes years later, I have gone, oh my God, I was that white woman. And in the first instance, when I was doing fostering and volunteering at PetSmart with an animal rescue, there was a kitten that I was really attached to, and this wonderful Black single mother with her adorable daughter came in and picked up this kitten that I was very attached to. And I was so close to just keeping the kitten for myself. And so when she's filling out, I was like, oh, well, have you ever rehomed an animal? And she answered yes. And I said, oh, well, we can't do that.
Yeah, you have a history of rehoming. We're not able
Right.
to have you taken this kitten because you are a risk of rehoming. We want forever homes, not until it gets inconvenient homes.
Right. And then just like 2 or 3 people coming in later, there came in this family of 4, mom, dad, boy, girl, clearly middle class, like just from the clothes and their talk. And, they didn't have as good of like connection with the kitten, but I was like, well,
they seem like a good family.
Yeah, like they have the yeah. And I want to say money, financial, whatever. And it was, once it was done, and I never asked them, I never even asked, have you rehomed? And even if I had, and I realized this like, gosh, practically the next day or the day after, it hit me, and I was like, what the hell did I do? And why did I do that? And I learned years later what implicit bias was. And I learned about how, these systems come into play where, because of all of the barriers, a Black family may end up in housing, especially a single mother, where because of these ridiculous rules about what they're allowed to have and, the jobs that are easier to get and all of that, they can end up in a place that's like no pets, and that's the only place they can afford, and that's the only option that they have. And
which may have been why they had to rehome the animal they spoke about. It wasn't that they were like, oh, well, the dog kind of chews on my shoes and I don't like that, so I'm just going to give it away. It was, we've looked for 3 months and our choice is live here where no cats are allowed or be homeless.
Right.
I'd rehome my animals if it meant providing my kids a home.
And I have since then. At the time, I was very young, early 20s, and 100% certain that, and that myopic view of the 20s. But no matter what justifications, no matter what rationale I come to me, what is constantly driven me to try and do better was the fact that I realized this was wrong. I failed this family. And it's always made me try and be very conscious. And yet at the same time, there have even been incidents recently where people that I respect and care about went, hey, this thing you did here where you called me and we're crying over this, and I'm not going to get in too much detail here because I want to hear your response, but that incident I'm still turning over because they were like, yeah, that's very racist. That was you, and let me lay out why. And I'm like, no, that wasn't what was happening. And yet I find myself having to confront, am I wrong? Is this a bias that I am failing to acknowledge? Have you found, as you're looking at these things like Black Lives Matter, and you're going, hey, honk, 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 I'm here, I'm supporting, this is a healthcare issue, not just a civil rights issue. These things are not separate. Have you found that they're looked back and gone, oh crap, I as a white woman have failed, and here's an example of that?
Absolutely. And if any white person in America says they haven't, then they're lying or they're willfully ignorant. First and foremost, our country was built on a platform of white supremacy, and that system is still in place. You do not have to be a white supremacist or a racist to benefit from and contribute to a racist white supremacist system. And that is something we all need to acknowledge. That white family did not get the same questions that Black family did. And that is part of the foundation of a white supremacist system. And so it's important to understand that we were all raised in a way that I've always thought I'm not racist. I don't use the N word. I want to give everyone, to answer your question, I think my biggest mistake is thinking, well, I don't see color, so I am not racist. I will not treat Black people differently than white people. I will give the Black person, if I have a pizza and I'm cutting it into 4 parts, I'll give me 1/4, the Black person 1/4, the Latinx person 1/4, and another white person 1/4. Like, it doesn't matter to me. But what I have to understand is not seeing color erases the history. It assumes that it's hard to find the right words, but it assumes a default, and that no, you fit into that default just fine. But a Black person is not a white person, and they have had different experiences, and they have lived in a different perspective than me, than other white people. And to not honor that is to take that away or assume it didn't happen. And I think that's the biggest mistake people make. And when I was younger, I didn't get it. And I don't remember exactly what led to this, but we were on a beach trip with my husband's family. My husband identifies as Black or mixed. His father was white, his mom is Black. So he's kind of got a toe in both worlds, but hasn't really been fully a part of either. He's too white to be Black, and he's too Black to be white. So he has a very interesting perspective as well. But I was with his mom, his sister, his brother, some nieces, nephews, and they all identify as Black. So we're there, and I'm the only white person there. And again, I'm still at the point where I don't see color. They're just family. They're just the in-laws. It doesn't matter. And they were talking about, like, it was early spring, so I think one of the nieces was talking about, like, how pale she had gotten over the winter, that she hadn't gone outside at all, and she can't wait for the sun. And one of the other nieces commented, oh my God, I know, like, look at this, and kind of like, look how pale I'm getting. And I was like, dude, I am so pale, you can see my veins. Boom. Conversation over. I done fucked up. Like, I was like, oh. And my mother-in-law was like, did you really just do that? And I was like, what? What does it matter? Like, I'm not allowed to do, I would do that with my friends. And so why wouldn't I do it with you? Like, I'm not going to treat you differently than I treat my friends. That's racist. And it took me until this Black Lives Matter movement to realize, not quite like, oh, it just dawned on me a week ago, but like in the last few years living, this was probably 10 years ago, but in living with my husband and learning more about his perspective on the world, and now having a mixed child who I want him to know his heritage. I want him to be proud of all aspects of him. I want to honor the Black side of him, the white side of him. And he's even got a little Native American in him. And if any of that is a culture he feels attached to, I want to offer that to him and nurture that. Our roots are our history and our story, and it's important. So getting back to the incident, the whole thing ended up with me crying in one of the bedrooms, not understanding how I'm getting yelled at and hated on for not being racist. Like, I'm not racist. What is going on? And it used to anger me because Matt's mom told me, if you treat us differently because of our skin color, that is being racist. But if you treat me exactly the same as everyone else, that is not acknowledging the struggle we have been through, and that is racist. So I'm like, wait, I treat you differently, I'm racist. I treat you the same, I'm racist. So no matter what, I'm just racist? That's bullshit. I'm not racist. It was a whole thing. And now I realize what she meant is I am complicit in a racist society. And that makes me unknowingly racist. And I was not open to that. I mean, and since then, we made up, they lived with us for a while, everything's great, but for a while, I'm not racist, I'm going to treat you exactly the same. I don't see color, I don't honor the Blackness of you, I don't honor the different perspective you have. It hurt our relationships for a very long time.
I can definitely understand that, and I've definitely felt that too. I think that somehow it became a bigger thing in white culture, a more offensive thing to be told you're racist, or even just what you did was racist, than it was to admit that we made a mistake, and that mistake was a racist mistake, and it was a bigger offense than the racist action we took, as if being called racist was worse than the actual action that was being called out. Right. And I am seeing change in that. How do you now process that when you're like going in with patients? Because we've talked about healthcare disparities in Black communities, and with things like COVID, and that can spread to all aspects of that. How have you found that this perspective shift has impacted your view of things as a healthcare worker?
So I treat myself like I'm a typhoid Mary at all times, and I take the utmost precautions with every single person I visit. But what it has opened my eyes to is that everyone's story is different. Everyone comes from a different perspective, and just because I see some crazy old black dude in a nursing home, with his hair out to crazy and fingernails that aren't very well kept, don't assume anything, because I cared for a man like that, and he was a doctorate of education and founded a Catholic school, and worked at Roosevelt High. And I mean, he was absolutely essential in the creation of part of the Portland community. So don't assume anything. Like, oh, this poor black guy is probably, got shit on his whole life. I just assumed that he had it really rough, and then he's telling me all these accomplishments. So even out of the, don't, I just assumed that he had a rougher life because he grew up in the 50s and 60s as a black man. And yeah, things were a little more difficult for him, but I tried to place a story on him because of his skin color that may or may not have been accurate. But the fact that I tried to place it at all out of compassion for him, not because I hate people of any skin color or I think anyone is better than the other. It was out of compassion and love, but it was still a racist act. It was still something that me as a white person assumed my story is the default. How does his differ? Probably like this, A, B, and C.
Right.
And that's not right, So we as white people, and also it's really important that we have these conversations, you as a white person, me as a white person, because we can say things and make those mistakes and call each other on it without the emotional history between us. If I was having this conversation with a black person, and made that mistake, I would, I can't, I feel horrible for the mistakes I do make, but there's not this 400 years of history between us. So it frees us up to have the scary conversations. I'm not afraid of offending you right now in this moment. What I am afraid of is offending in general. And it's a safe, I don't really know how to word it, but it's like a safer place for us to spitball and explore those ideas and make those mistakes. And it's not just an angry black person saying, that's racist, don't say that. It's another white person saying, hey, have you thought of it this way? That's racist. Don't say that. Right. And not that coming from a white person gives it more validity or credit, but it takes the emotion out of it and can allow, and some people need this. Some people need the safe place to have the scary conversation. So it's okay to have conversations about race between two white people or two black people or whatever the combination is, but acknowledging that every combination creates a different environment, a different perspective is important. We are not the default.
Right. And one thing I will say in this vulnerability aspect is kind of two parts that I have found. One is making sure that we are checking that we are not just talking to each other, but really making a point to get out and listen, whether it's through, you know, things like YouTube videos. There's the YouTube video Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. That's a series that started up recently that I thought was amazing. He's a really interesting guy. And then, you know, but also, I mean, going to panels and places where we are invited but should not necessarily be taking up space. Like, don't go to a space that where they're like, hey, we need a place where we don't have to necessarily deal with your unconscious biases coming in the room with you, but the ones where they're like, yeah, show up and then shut up, you know, and listen and create that. And then when we're doing these conversations with each other in private, being able to say things and call each other out. And I'm going to do that briefly, and I hope, you know, it's not too off on that. You had said, oh, here's this angry Black woman saying that. And that is definitely, I think, a common stereotype, a very common stereotype.
Exactly.
That often scares. This is a history that I don't know how exactly the stereotype formed, but I have seen it. And so I'm gonna say, hey, here, when you're like, oh, scary Black woman, even when we are framing something, we still rely on those. And we need to be able to go, like I'm doing now, hey, Nikki, angry Black woman is not a fair thing to pull back from these conversations with people of color directly. Because I think there's a line. There's definitely a balance that has to be hit, where we need to understand that when we are in a room with people that we know and we care about, and they are like, you know, I don't mean to be racist, but that we cut that off at the knees.
Anything before the but is irrelevant.
Right.
Like, I'm not racist, but I'm going to say something racist anyway. No, that means you're racist. Like, you know, that is a racist act. And while you may not be encouraging lynchings or joining the KKK, you don't have to be aggressively racist to participate in racism. You don't have to be a bigot to participate in racism. And those are the things that are so easy for people who have been raised in an unconscious foundation of white supremacy do. The other day I read something, and this kind of just, you know, it was kind of one of those, wait a minute, what? In my own head, you know, like I almost heard the pop. But I've always said Black kids are just as good as white kids. But listen to how foreign this sounds. Black kids are just as good as white kids are just as good as Black kids. It sounds weird, right? Why? If they're equals, then if A equals B, then B equals A. So why is it saying A equals B more correct? Because again, it's assuming white as the default. White people, well, Black kids can be that good too. Like, why are we the benchmark? You know, and it's just little things like that I was never taught to be racist. But growing up white in America has given me a foundation of white people are the default. We are the bar to which Black people must rise to. And that's not accurate. And it's catching those things in our own head, you know. If I'm having this conversation with a Black person and I say something that is, I mean, obviously I think you know me well enough to know I'd never say something purposely hurtful, but I might say something that is accidentally hurtful. And they're like, well, hold up. My gut reaction as a white person is to be like, look, you're just angry because of the movement right now. Like, I get it, you're passionate about equality, but like, it was a mistake. I acknowledge that, but maybe don't be so angry about it. And that's not right. You know, just because someone is black and angry does not mean they are an angry black woman, you know? And that was my problem with my mother-in-law, is she demonstrated for civil rights. She lived in the Whitaker area of Eugene in the like mid 80s. That was Anarchy Central, and she's been very passionate about history and civil rights. And when she told me the mistakes I was making, I heard an angry black woman saying, no matter what you do, you're racist. So I was like, look, you're just angry and you want to hate me. I couldn't hear what she was saying because of the racial foundation of la, 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 you're just an angry black woman. Mm-hmm. I love her to death. I never said an unkind word to her. I wasn't bigoted towards her, but that was a blatantly racist action.
Yeah. And
it wasn't intentional, but it was very blatant. It was right there. I couldn't hear it. So I think the biggest mistake we make is not hearing what's actually being said because of our unconscious biases.
And I think at this point, one of the things that I know I am trying to do, I imagine you're trying to do as well, is find those moments in ourselves and own the fuck out of them. If something is not sitting, that you're like, no, I have all these justifications, but it is still not sitting right. And I apologize for the brief switch right here, but apparently these are starting to give out. I need to get new ones. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I'm gonna pause real quick. There we go. Now I'm getting sound. Are you hearing me?
All right.
There we go.
I'm hearing you.
And I tried to pause, and then I completely forgot that this device, unlike every other device I have, is not touchscreen, and so no matter how many times I tap on the screen, it will actually never work. So I apologize. I apologize for any reduced audio quality, both to you and to members of the audience. I think my usual headphones, despite doing all triple checking today, have officially started to hit the end of their lifespan, and I am just going to have to retire them and use other devices from here on out. So what I was going to say is, I know for myself, one of the things that I am trying to do is not only look in, acknowledge, learn from, but also admit to, and whenever possible, make amends for. And that's something that I would encourage viewers of this to do. Don't necessarily show up and just suddenly like dump on your nearest black friend. Oh, wow, that was impressively.
Oh, there we go. We're good. We're good.
Okay. I'll give it 1, 2, 3. See if it keeps up. All right. I think we're solid on this now.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. So yeah. Make amends, not only to look for, own up, and acknowledge internally, but also to, be open about, apologize for. I'm very, very sorry for what I did to that family. To me, it's a failure I will always regret. But I think we should look at ways we can make amends. And I don't mean just call up the Black friend where you made a mistake sobbing on the phone. They don't need that emotional labor. But when you have time,
it's not their job to make us feel better about
right.
being a part of a system that has oppressed.
Right, exactly. I think I've lost you. I'm gonna go ahead and pause. Sorry about that, guys. We are back. Just technical difficulties. Traveling in Zoom are not a match made in heaven.
Nope.
So
Zoom is not very zoomy. Zoom is much more stationary. But that's okay. That's okay. We're making it work.
We're making it work. Absolutely.
Making it work.
So just because the audio cut out of Weird Point, just want to go back and in terms of like our responsibilities as white people, white women, in terms of owning up, making amends, but not suddenly just requiring that Black members of our friends and our family suddenly have to do the emotional labor of making us feel better about our racism.
Right.
And for me, I think it's a thing where I do think that we can have those conversations, and we should, in terms of, hey, you've got a moment, you're hanging out with a friend, and it's a space where you can, and without emotionally dumping on the person, being like, hey, I've been thinking a lot about this experience, and I wanted to say that I am sorry. I recognize now that was a mistake, and I wanted to let you know. And don't give it the whole heartbreaking excuse. Don't go into this long dramatic detail about what a tragic history or any of that sometimes, as we get caught up in things, and I think we as women, cis women, have kind of been conditioned on are these big emotional things like that. We are women, and that's how we do things, has been some of the upbringing I know I have had, and instead learn to do it in a very straightforward but without reservation, with clear apology and remorse, and then let them take it if they just want to be like,
yeah.
And do it at the right time. Don't be like, hey, it's your kid's birthday party, by the way, totally sorry I did the racist thing, but I hope we're good now.
Right. Yeah. So a friend of mine, he is bald. He has a beard. He's a white guy. He's been in the military. He got a tactical vest, helmet, the whole thing, paint. Basically, he dressed in all black, but with a backpack on, with medic gear, milk of magnesia to help with pepper spray and tear gas and first aid supplies. And he went down there, and a lot of people were like, "Are you here to like cause issues?" And a lot of people, especially people of color, were a little leery. And he said, "You know what? That's okay. Just accept it. If I call if I call one of my Black friends and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm white. I'm so sorry, the system sucks." And she's like, yeah, it's okay. And I'm like, oh, please forgive me. And she's like, yeah, we have no problem. I have forgiven you. Okay, but there's other Black people in the world. So that doesn't mean, okay, well, my Black friend forgave me, so I'm good. I'm like practically one of you guys now. No, not how that works,
And I think we've experienced those people in the white community, and it sounds like a caricature, but honestly,
it's not.
It's not. And it is. And to those people who are seeing themselves represented in that kind of statement, understand that's okay. I think the biggest thing that I have learned that I have heard, you know, in the, you know, the channel that just started the YouTube video, not sponsored, but hey, uh, is Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. And I saw this when the Black Lives Matter movement first came into being, what, 6 years ago, 5, 6 years ago? Yeah.
419 or 401
Right,
years ago in
right.
1619, which,
We're
side
like,
note, a lot of
hey,
people focus on that date because that's the first documented slavery in the on land that would become the United States. But the system put into place that allowed that has existed for thousands of years. Just throwing that out there. Okay, moving
on. Is of all the things I've learned, learn to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Learn to sit in that discomfort and learn and learn how to do better. And then when you make a mistake, learn to do better. And most importantly, when you fail, own it, apologize
and learn
for it,
to do better.
And learn to do better. But also, nobody owes you their forgiveness.
Nope.
If they want to cancel you 6 ways to Sunday because of the mistake you made, that is their right. And that may suck for you, and I get that. And nobody wants that. But own it. It was your mistake, and there are consequences. And I think the biggest thing,
even if there wasn't a mistake, because my friend that went down to the protest, he was not doing anything wrong and was still looked at like, what is your deal? And that's okay. He didn't make any mistakes. I mean, that I know of. Maybe, I don't know. But like, he didn't make any, there was no action that was like, ooh, you know what? We can't be friends anymore. There was none of that. And that's okay, because the biggest thing is, hey, white people, it's not about us right now. You know?
Right.
It's not about whether someone is going to forgive me for the system that I didn't put into place. I benefit from it. I contribute to it by simply existing. Right. But it's not, the goal is not to get forgiveness from your people of color friends. My black husband, babe, I'm sorry I'm white, can you forgive me? That's not his job. And even if he does, it doesn't mean shit, because the system's still in place. It's our job to, like you said, sit in that uncomfortableness, sit in the mistake, learn from it, and be okay with saying, yep, I was wrong. And that's part of that white supremacist system, that foundation, is we were always by default taught that we were the default. So our actions are the correct ones. Anything that differs from that is incorrect. And that's where we have to unlearn. We have to learn from our mistakes and unlearn the behavior we've been taught. And it's a really tricky balance. And you know what? We're not going to get it right. We're not going to get it right, period. We're not going to get it right for a long time. And we have to be okay with that.
Right. And I think that the best we can do is know that what is needed from us now is not some sort of white guilt. It's not some sort of white tears. It's understanding our role as best we can to dismantle white supremacy, understanding that, yeah, you know, we could lose privileges, you know, because they're making space to level the playing field. So, you know, if you got, you know, Nikki Jackson, you know, and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna prefer here to that, and then in the future they're like, oh, well, we need to take a better look at these other candidates, you know, that are you know, definitely, my first thought is I have a friend named Anissa, you know, names that don't bring out with white bread and middle America. And they start making space for that. Yeah, that may mean that, you know, when we work at school, we're not going to find jobs as easily, you know, because there are more people being seriously considered. And that sucks. But then we need to learn how to make it, the system, actually balance. And we need to understand that our loss of privilege is not a penalty. It
No.
is a leveling. It is a civil rights issue, and we need to clear that field as best we can.
Like, to put it really simply, say you and I are playing a game of chess. I have all the designated pieces. I don't have an extra queen. I don't have a hidden rook. I don't have extra pawns, nothing. I have exactly what I'm supposed to have per the rules of the game. But you have 3 less pawns, only 1 rook, and your bishop can only move half of what it normally can. Like, it can only, instead of, I think bishops are the one that go diagonal. Sure.
Don't ask me on chat.
I don't know.
I think they're the
but
ones
it can
that
only
do
move,
like.
No, those are the knights.
Weird total.
Yeah, bishops go diagonal. So,
okay.
say like your short 3 pawns, you only have 1 rook, which are the castle ones, and your bishop can only go 5 spaces instead of a full diagonal, whatever. Cool. You're playing as the black person in America. I'm playing as a white person.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're playing this game, and I'm like, yeah, cool. Hey, this is cool. Like, you're making some good moves. Awesome. Rock on. I'm making some good moves, too. You and I may be playing both of our best games, but the game is rigged. So I need to look at that and go, wait a minute. Hold on. Hey, guys. She doesn't have all of her proper pieces. Like, and some of her pieces can't move like mine can. Hold on. This game isn't fair. This isn't right. So either I need to get rid of a few pawns, get rid of my rook, and my bishop can only move 5 spaces, or even better, let's let you play by the same rules that I do. Except it's not a game, it's people's lives.
Right. And I think
so
one of the
you could sit there and say, this isn't fair, this isn't fair. Don't you see this? This isn't fair. And I'm like, well, look, like, I didn't set up the board. I'm not the one who designed this. I'm just playing by the rules, man. I respect you as a player. Like, but I need to be the one to stand up and say, hey, who put this board together? Hey, guys, this isn't right. Can I bring some of the attention to this, please?
Yeah.
Because if you just sit there and going, I'm losing, this isn't fair, people are going to say, well, learn to play better.
Yeah.
I'm winning the game, not because I'm better at it, but because it's rigged in my favor. And it's therefore my responsibility to recognize that and say, hey, no, this needs to be fair.
Yeah.
And like that one woman, and I apologize for not knowing her name off the top of my head, but she's the woman who said, you broke the contract. You broke the contract.
Oh, yeah. I remember her.
She's got hair to the side, I think kind of a purpley colored shirt, kind of like a little darker than mine, I think.
And the video was played at the end of the police topic by Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. So if you go to the end of that, that's where that is. And if I had the original video, if I can find it, I will try and link it somewhere.
I think if you just Google "you broke the contract," it should get you there. But like she said, and you really need to listen to the whole speech. And and without hearing the whole thing, the last part doesn't have quite as much emphasis. But
so
basically,
what I'll go ahead
she summed it up.
What I'll try and do, and I can't make a promise, so I apologize to viewers on this and listeners if we weren't able to do this, but I will try and track down the video and see if we can put it in, splice it in. because really the whole thing is something that you need to listen to, and you need to be, if it makes you uncomfortable, it makes you defensive, sit
Good.
with that, because we need to get there. So
Yeah.
but continue to your point on that, and we'll try and get that cut in just before.
So, okay, so you've either just heard it or we'll probably Google it on your own, viewers, but she ends with saying, "You're lucky Black people just want equality and not revenge."
Right.
And that's all that is being asked, is equality.
Right.
And the people who have the system rigged for them need to be willing to fight for that.
And we have to be willing to accept that loss of privilege will happen. We succeed, that will happen, and that is a good thing, even if personally it's an upsetting thing. And I think we can get there. I think we are. I have unrealistic hope. I think right now there is a dueling cynicism and nihilism inside of me, competing with this optimism that I think that most of us can learn. I think enough of us can learn and can do and can push back. I have seen change in people that I never expected to say anything, to show up at protests. I have never expected these people to get to this point. And despite having, like, you know, for years I've been posting all of these Black Lives Matters issues and talking about it and trying to raise awareness. And there were people that I was just like, it's never going to happen, and then it did. And that gives me hope that we will see in 20 years, we will look back and this will be like, you know, when the emancipation, and this will be like, you know, when segregation was made illegal on the books. And both of those are incomplete and flawed, but I do think we can have another push and have another moment where we finally address.
It shouldn't be the next step for Black people. It should be the next step for humanity.
Yeah. And that's the thing. These, I can't say I understand why people are realizing it now, because I have to tell you, I remember, I'm old enough to remember the Rodney King riots. And you know,
barely, but yeah.
Right. And that video, and, you know, when I have Tamir Rice's name is the main one for me. When those cops drove up and in a matter of seconds empty bullets into a child, I have no idea how anybody was able to see that, was able to, so many names piling up.
If someone did that to my kid, I wouldn't chant on the streets. I'd burn the world down.
Right. And that's, I think, part of our privilege too. I think that's why you see so many white rioters instead of a lot of, you know, Black rioters, because white people do not know the cost of those actions.
No.
We have been playing.
We've never had to suffer those consequences. Individually, yes. And I hate the term white privilege, because it assumes that, oh, I grew up so privileged. I went to a wonderful school and had cars given to me. You know what? Maybe my parents beat me and I was passed around the foster system and I had a shithole childhood. Mm-hmm. That doesn't sound very privileged. But at the end of the day, I don't have a skin color that makes it even more difficult.
Right. And
I don't have melanin. And it's melanin, not melatonin. Oh my God, people. Melanin, not melatonin.
And I think the reason, I think that's why a lot of white people see white privilege, the phrase, and they're like, well, yeah, no, I've I've had nothing but harsh scrabble.
It's
But
POC disprivilege. Going back to the chess analogy, I don't have extra pieces on the board.
Because that's not it either. And I think that white privilege is the best term, because we have had time and time again governmental systems set up for us. I have had no trouble when it has come to getting services. I have not been run through the ringer. I have had no problem, you know, when I stand up, people listening. And this is systemic. There are things there. Redlining, the practice officially has ended, but we need to recognize that even when we get these things officially ended, that we still need to make sure that once it is done, once we have, you know, reduced funding for you know, public security, which I'm not going to say police because I think that is a type of public security, but when we've reduced funding for law enforcement, for example, where we are funding what is needed to, you know, process rape kits and investigate murders and, you know, crimes, and actually follow up on actual law enforcement issues, and are not putting putting the rest of that funding into the public services that are needed, which is what is meant by the whole defund the police. It's bring law enforcement down to the role that is actually law enforcement, and bring, you know, other social services,
work, and
right, and healthcare and education, fill that gap. Stop making it be all police everything all the time, and that's where we pour it. I think that once we do that step, and that is my hope, that we will do this step, that we will get these laws in place, that we will abolish police as the current setup and switch to a law enforcement method that is from the ground up and based in equity and justice, then I think we need to remember that the next step, that there is a next step, is to follow through. It is to make sure to catch the gaps where people are like, yeah, buts. Well, it's not exactly. Because every time we make these headways, every time we as a society do that, there is a backlash afterwards, an attempt to get as much of that power that was lost back. And we have to not just look at this win, but take a deep breath, take care of ourselves, and look at the next win. And we have to be there. And as white women, we got to do that. That is we need to own our place of privilege. We need to own what we can do, and we need to direct that to be supportive. We need to shut up when it is our time to shut up, and give space for others, and talk and hold each other accountable over and over and over again. And so, yeah, that I would stop there, but I do have one more important question that one of our staff on a related topic, because civil rights and healthcare are not actually separate issues.
They're not.
What are your concerns in the coming months, in the fall, about COVID-19 in relation to both the protests and the reopening efforts? What are you concerned about?
Until we have a vaccine, so we can establish herd immunity, this virus will always be here. Maybe not demanding our attention every second of every day, but here. And there will be an uptick in cases because of these protests. And reopening the state, people will automatically think, oh, cool, so things are like chill now. I've been wearing a mask for like 3 months. It's summer. I want to feel the sun on my face. Complacency. That's what's going to happen. Is there are now bigger issues, and in true American fashion, we get bored easy. So COVID was so 2 months ago. Like, I'm over it, whatever. And people, they get desensitized to the fear and then distracted by a new thing. And that results in complacency, not wearing a mask. I see a lot of people wearing their masks like this. No, really?
Please, my beautiful watchers, do not. No, put it. I love all of you. Put it up here.
Pinch, pull under, like make sure it's on, and then make these as tight as you can. A little elastic thing. That creates your seal. So we're going to see an uptick, which should drive home how important these protests are. I have a friend who, he's HIV positive. He is a gay man who is HIV positive, and he is out protesting. He is literally, he is a white man. He is literally risking his life, because if he gets COVID, the chances of it killing him are astronomical. And he sees how important it is. As someone who has been oppressed, he sees the importance of fighting that oppression and dismantling a system that allows the oppression. And even he acknowledges that his oppression in his life has been nothing compared to a lot of people. Because at the end of the day, you can look at him and not know if he's gay or not. He can take off his gayness and just be some guy, some white guy.
Yeah.
You can't take off your blackness and be the default.
Right. And that's definitely something that I can relate to. I said in an interview I did with ASL sign languager at the protesters that for as much as this piece of fabric definitely makes me stand out to certain people, and I can't say that's not part of the intent, to show who I am, to demonstrate my faith. I can take this off.
Yeah.
And then I can say, oh well, that was a mistake and I was misguided, but now let me show up at the KKK or Nazi or CPAC.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not worry, not even a little bit, and be open.
Have the safety
welcome
of
with open
default.
arms. Yeah.
A lot of people don't have that safety, and the only resolution is to remove it as a default.
Right. And I will say on that thing, one of the things that I have found is a thing I take as a personal responsibility is so many of these white supremacists use white women as their justification. I am out here, standing up against white oppression. Oh, such a phrase.
Right? Like 2020 even real.
Right? And they're out there and they're saying this, because I want to protect white women. I mean, that was what Dylan Roof was talking about when he went into a black church where they welcomed him with open arms, was because he was protecting white women and all of this. And so to any white supremacists somehow making it this far into a video that I'm sure upset your tiny feelings, fuck you. I don't need you to defend me ever.
Yeah.
Ever at all. And I will always state that, and I will always be better than needing your pathetic attempts to protect me. I am not yours. I never will be. None of this that you do in our name is ever okay. And I will always do more action to push back against it. So don't use me as an excuse for your pathetic, tiny, worthless feelings. I don't ever need it.
Yeah.
No one does. Grow up. You know, grow the fuck up. Handle your shit. Don't sit there and lean on white women. And white women, holy, stop letting them. You are not a delicate
That's a whole nother podcast,
flower.
girl. That's a whole nother podcast.
It is, and that is what ultimately in all of this, as people who are very interested in healthcare, people who are very interested in civil rights, women's rights, Black Lives Matter, all of that we have talked about. We will, I think you and I, continue to push back on this and take advantage and push this down, because I don't give a fuck who says they're doing it in my name. They never are. And I will always do what I can, as much as I can, to stand against oppression. Black Lives Matter. It's not a controversial statement.
No. Why?
And police brutality is
Don't
wrong.
kill people that shouldn't be killed, which is pretty much everybody. Oh, well, hold on. Don't be hasty now.
Right.
What?
Right.
Like, how is that even? Maybe just don't kill people.
No, police have been entrusted with a badge and a responsibility, and if they cannot handle it, and they have shown that time and time again, that they, as a group, they cannot handle this responsibility, whether they are the supervisors who are, you know, giving warnings and writing it off and, you know, letting it go, whether it's, you know, the union leaders, whether it's, you know, obviously the people doing it, which I think I said at the beginning, but, you know, it's getting a little warm in here, or it's the complacent members of the police force that are not walking off that line 100% of the time, are not in the police, you know, in their police department saying this is wrong, calling it out. Every single mayor or sheriff that continues to justify this in any way, you guys should have listened to yourselves. You said these are a few bad apples. And maybe...
And I want to stop you right there, because in the produce world, the phrase is not, oh, a few bad apples don't ruin the bunch. No, a few bad apples do. And if the rot spreads so fast, and if it's bad enough, they can't just wash out the container and use it again. They have to burn it because the mold spores are infectious. So a few bad apples does ruin the crop. You have to throw out the entire crop. So don't give me that bad apple shit.
We are at. That is where we are at, because
the rot has spread.
They have sat there and said time and time again, it is a few bad apples, and maybe, not really, I've looked at history, it's not really, but hey, you know what? For the sake of argument, let's say maybe you're kind of right, that there was just a few bad apples. Well, guess what? Those apples were not gotten rid of. That rot has spread. It has infected the entire barrel. And that is why we say, abolish the police. We need to set up a new law enforcement. We need to defund this and fund our communities. And we need to do this and own it. I am not ever going to say okay to a single thing that will include more funding for law enforcement until these radical changes have taken place, because you guys failed at your own measure. When you said it was a few bad apples, you didn't get them out, and now the whole bunch is spoiled, and it is time to burn the barrel and get a new one.
And, you know, people say, well, how are we supposed to just defund an entire community service? Well, we've been defunding schools for years. So maybe we should not fund quite so much the bad thing and refund the thing we need more of.
Right.
But I do have to get to my patient because I do work
Absolutely.
in the healthcare world. So on that note,
thank you so much for your time. Yes.
Wash your hands, be safe, support each other. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to learn from the mistakes. Don't be afraid to be a good ally.
Yep. Thank you so much, Nikki. Have a great day. Give love to your patients for me. And I look forward to talking with you again. I'll say it again. Black Lives Matter, 100% all the time.
Black Lives Matter, man.
Yeah. Bye for now.
All right. Bye.